What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambo. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay, here to talk some Green Bay Packers. We're going to continue to turn the page towards the Minnesota Vikings game, but we've got to hit on a couple other topics before we get to that point here, probably in the second half of the show. I know the chat's already filling in. Appreciate everybody joining us here on this glorious December 27th as everybody's recovering from Christmas and getting prepared for New Year's, man. I sent Tim and the guys a picture of Lincoln, my German Shepherd, on the couch, but he just wore out. He's had enough of this. He's like, there's too many people coming and going, and there's too much food that I can't have sitting on the counter. You know what I mean? Like, it's driving him crazy. So,
man, Link is out of there. I just saw the picture.
Yeah, bro. He is over the holidays. I love it too. So, let's do this, man. Let's give a quick shout out to the good folks over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live, Wisconsin-based since 1992, specializing in Packers tickets. They are Wisconsin's largest ticket source with offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Click on the link in the video description here that'll send you to their website, theticketking.com. You can register as a customer and go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets, as we've got another home game coming up here, obviously against Chicago, man. Grab those tickets before the season is over. Again, that's Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. And Tim, I know the chat's already lighting up here. We got a super chat. King Tron says, kicking off the day with the first super chat. Go, Pack, go. Appreciate you, Tron. He went on to say, can't wait to watch Green Bay walk into the Vikings house and kick some teeth in. This stage is set, Tim, to be one of the best games of the season. You know, we kind of thought maybe the Houston game seemed like preseason. Everybody's like, man, that Houston Packers game is going to be lit, right?
Yeah.
And obviously Houston's kind of underperformed, I think, in most people's eyes. CJ Stroud took a step back this year. And then you get a little later in the year and it's like, holy cow, man, the Vikings are, a top 3 team. Some would say they're the best team in the league, and it really is. It's hard to argue with that, seeing how banged up the Detroit Lions are and how much help the Chiefs get from the refs. But that's a topic for another day. It's going to be a hell of a matchup, though. Up in Minneapolis, that place is going to be so freaking loud. Yeah. And we went through this last year, though, man. You remember New Year's Eve? We went up there and did kick their teeth in. So it's going to be exciting to see how the Packers show up. Man, how are we feeling about this game before we dive into all the Packers news here?
I'm feeling like I hope Matt's got him inside the Hudson Center, and, we're blasting the music, pumping in the crowd noise, getting ready for that environment, because you're absolutely right, man. This is going to be a close game. And I think the Packers, unlike the last time we played the Vikings, I think we'll play 4 quarters of football this time. This is a different Packers team. In a lot of ways, it isn't a different Vikings team. They've been consistent throughout this season. So they are who we thought they were. And I think the Pack is going to get it done. It's going to be a close game. I'm field goal, McMoney game. Let's go.
Yeah, definitely. And the last I checked, the Packers are still 1-point favorites, which typically means, you tack on the 3 for being the home team with Minnesota. You're looking at, somewhere between a 2 to 4 point game. I think you're right there in the ballpark, Tim. It's going to be it's going to come down to a field goal for sure. Blake B in the chat says, we kicked Minnesota's ass late in the season the last 3 years. It's a great point, Blake. And I tell you, Matt LaFleur has kind of had this history, at least up till this year, of getting off to a late start. And I truly believe it's not so much that it's a late start as it is a strong finish. And it's because Matt is a schemer. That dude, he can put a game plan together better than just about anyone in the league, right? Talking about Coach LaFleur. And I think the adjustments he makes going into the later half of the year, you could really, really see it on tape. It's all over the tape. Now, Adam Stenovich, the OC in Green Bay, made a comment to him that kind of goes hand in hand with what you just said. Man, he went back and watched the tape and was like, it's hard to watch that first half because we made so many mental errors. And if you can erase 90% of those mental errors and then see that the Packers came back and still almost won that game, you really do like the chances for the Packers winning this game, man.
Yeah, I really do, because, we know the rules, right? You can't turn the ball over repeatedly to a team like the Vikings or the Lions or the Kansas City referees, whatever. The Chiefs, that's their name, sorry. You can't have turnovers against top tier teams, because it's really difficult to think you're going to leave with a dub. But Packers continue to defy odds. I mean, we've seen them lose the middle eight, lose the turnover differential, win the ball game. We've seen it happen this year. If you think that's going to happen often, you're crazy, because it's not. So we got to go out there and play disciplined, fundamental ball and get the job done and not turn it over. Ground and pound, baby. Give that ball to the running backs, open up things in the passing game, and let's run out of Minneapolis with a squeak out a win, come back to Green Bay so we can kick the Bears' asses,
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too. The Bears are going to be looking to play spoiler, but boy, after that crap show last night, we're going to hit on that here in a minute, as it was just all over Twitter, man. What an absolute debacle Chicago is. And you guys have heard me this year going into the season. I was like, listen, Caleb Williams is one of the most talented quarterbacks the league has ever drafted into the league. All right. His ability to make guys miss in the pocket and kind of make something out of nothing and throw on the run. To me, he's more accurate when he throws on the run than he is when his feet are set. So you got all these tools, but again, the knock was, is he going to be a leader? Because it's kind of felt like it's all about him. It's all about him. It's all about him. You've seen that last night, especially in the presser. And when you talk about the clock management, again, we'll hit on it here in a little bit. We'll kind of stick on with the Vikings for a second. We'll drift off into that, and then we'll come back to the Vikings to wrap the show up. But, it was Matt Eberflus's fault with that clock management on Thanksgiving. So they fired him, right? Or I'm sorry, they fired Shane Waldron. It was Shane Waldron's fault at first. And then, so they get rid of Shane Waldron. It was his fault. Then it was Matt Eberflus's fault for the clock management in Detroit, right, on Thanksgiving. And now it's all of a sudden, what's his name? Thomas Brown, I think is his name. Now it's his fault. Well, that's the clock. Guys, there's one common denominator here, and it's Caleb Williams. Yeah. And again, he's a rookie. It's going to take time, but it's just a perfect example of him not understanding the situation and trying to not just, get to the line in a hurry and all that, but then trying to change the play in Detroit when there's no time to change the play. He's the one who burned that precious time off the clock. And then last night with them refusing to call a timeout and then immediately calling a timeout with the clock already stopped, the very next play was just, I have never seen that before. It was mind-boggling. But anyway, Ron Sample says stadiums get quiet when the Pack gets up by 10. It's a great point, Ron. You want to take that crowd out of the game as soon as possible. And we know Minnesota fans are as fair weather as they come. Most of them. There's some good ones out there, don't get me wrong. But you've got to quiet that crowd quick. Now, there's two ways to look at this, Tim. Last year, the crowd was a non-factor when the Packers were up there on New Year's Eve, right? But earlier this year in Detroit, the Packers really struggled with the silent count. So hopefully they've gotten that cleaned up. We went into Seattle, and you would love to use that as a gauge, but hell, it felt like there was more Packer fans in Seattle than there was
Lambeau
Seattle
West, baby, Lambeau West.
So I think that's the biggest thing for me is how is this offensive line going to minimize mental mistakes with that crowd? That's going to be one of the keys to this game. So
I agree. It's also one of those games that I feel like I go against my gut, where it's, hey, if we win the toss, let's defer to the second half. I don't think we do that. I think we take the ball in Minneapolis, go down the field, and put 7 on the board right away, just like we did in New Orleans. So
yeah, and it does. Listen, it's give and take there. You guys know I'm team defer. I would rather defer, but boy, when Matt does get the ball, whether it's the other team deferring or him choosing to take the ball, and you do go down and score quick, man, you've really got control of the game from there on out. It truly feels like that. Yeah. But if you don't score and they score,
right,
whoo, you're on your heels.
That's the thing, right? It all hinges on that first drive. If you can't put points on the board, and I'm not talking about a field goal, I'm talking about a tutter, and then your defense comes out and gets you a stop. Now you're rolling. But if you go 3 and out on that opening drive or something, you just really screwed yourself. So I'm normally with you, Clayton. I always prefer to defer, but something's telling me take the ball against the Vikings, man. Try and get up early.
Yeah, definitely. Nick McSwain in the chat says, people say the Packers haven't beaten any good teams, but look at the teams the Vikings have played. Let's take a look here. Tim, I've been wanting to check this out for a while now. Let's see if we can get a good grab of it. Listen, you can go early in the season if you want, but really what matters is the last 4 games. We'll kind of work, backwards with the schedule. So they played at Seattle. They won that game 27-24. Keep in mind the Packers have full control over the game of Seattle. So if you use that as a gauge, you would think the Packers are the better team. They beat Chicago 30-12, which is the way you should beat the Chicago Bears. So that's a bad team for sure. Atlanta's a playoff team, right? I mean, nothing has changed there to the best of my knowledge. Let me throw this up real quick. I'm pretty sure Atlanta's in. Yeah, they're down there underneath the comments. So, Atlanta's a playoff team. I know they're not a great team, but at the same time,
playoffs.
you gotta. I look at any team that makes the playoffs as they're a good football team, right? It's very, very, very rare that a bad football team is going to make the playoffs. Before that, you got Arizona. Arizona's been very up and down. Now, keep in mind, Minnesota barely beat Arizona by 1 point, 23-22. There's the Chicago Bears again, which it took them to overtime to beat them 30-27. If you're going to use that argument, though, as Packer fans, I know I'm as guilty as anyone. You've also got to take into consideration it took us blocking a field goal on the very last play to beat the Bears. So, that's just being real, right? Being realist. Tennessee, they beat 23-13, another bad team. Jacksonville, 12-7. I don't know what happened there. They beat Jacksonville. That's a very bad team. Indianapolis, not a great team, although they were kind of in the running for the playoffs. I'm not sure if they're still there. They beat them 21-13. They lost to the Rams 30-20, and they lost to Detroit 31-29. So they went down to the wire with Detroit. Now, again, that's much earlier in the season. They beat the Jets. They obviously beat us 31-29. I can't believe it was just a 2-point game with the way that first half went. That's wild. Houston, they beat 34-7. San Francisco, they beat 23-17. And then the New York Giants on the road, they beat them 28-6. So I see your point, Nick. There are a lot of bad football teams on that schedule. But I am going to take into consideration, too, though, if you were to say, okay, what were their best wins? Seattle is a borderline playoff team, right? They beat them 27-24 on the road. Atlanta is a playoff team as it sits right now. They beat them 42-21, right? And Arizona just got eliminated last week. They beat them 23-22. So to me, if that Atlanta-Seattle game there, Tim, those are two pretty good football teams, right? I mean, I'm not looking at those as like horrible teams.
No, they're not like Chicago Bear, New York Giant bad. But they're not great. I wouldn't call them great tees. But yeah, you're right. They're a team you can't take for granted, and you get a dub. It's a legit win. I would agree.
And to Nick's point, I think what he's saying is if you compare our schedule to theirs, I mean, it's not like they're playing a bunch of world beaters and we're playing a bunch of scrubs. That's not the case at all. It's kind of pretty even in my opinion. So,
I agree.
All right, let's see here. Joseph in the chat says, "What's the chance that Watson plays?" Man, it's tough because obviously he did not practice. It is a bruise. There's no structural damage. The MRI came back clean. Matt LaFleur said it's possible that he could play, right? If I had to put a percentage on it, Joseph, and I know this is a very boring stance, I would say 50% chance, 50-50 that he plays. Now, how important is it that you beat the Vikings? That's the real question, right? Maybe we should queue up the playoff simulator, Tim. I think I'll get that ready, and let's just kind of see how aggressive should you be with your roster to get people like Jair and people like Christian Watson on the field if they're maybe not 100%, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see what
you're gonna have to handcuff Christian Watson to the bench if you don't want him on the field. I'll tell you that guy's gonna want to go. Yeah. But I would agree. I think it's probably a coin flip at this point, right? Like we'll see. We've got they practice today, travel day tomorrow. So we'll see how today goes, right?
So let's kind of see what's on the line here, guys. Let's go worst case scenario real quick. It's funny, too. This was not in the show notes. I'm going to change everything around, but the chat controls the show always. So
we're calling it audible. Let's go.
That's right. Let's see. Playoff. We'll go playoff simulation here.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. Another game.
All right. So let's walk through the games that actually matter here. If you focus at the top of the screen, let's pick these teams. Obviously, Seattle beats the Bears last night. Those have already been decided. So let's say that the Rams, who are 9-6, and the Cardinals are already eliminated. Let's say the Rams win that game. All right. Let's say that Tampa beats Carolina. Let's say that New Orleans beats the Raiders, which I don't think it really matters. Let's say Philly beats Dallas. And that'll bring us to, let's go ahead and fast forward after our game and say that who would we rather not win here, Tim, Atlanta or Washington? This is tough. Washington's a 7 seed. Atlanta is currently out of the playoffs. So that playoff picture was before last night's games. So
I think we want Atlanta more than we want Tampa Bay in the playoffs. as far as like a matchup.
Okay.
So I
So
guess
let's say
you'd
you
want
want to
the
say
Falcons
Atlanta.
to win, right? Win
But
and squeak
I'm
in,
thinking
maybe.
I'm thinking worst case scenario for the playoff situation here, whether the Packers should get aggressive trying to start all their guys,
Mhm.
like trying to rush them back from injury. So if Washington's a 7 seed, Atlanta's currently out. Let's just say Washington in this
Washington
case.
wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'll go Detroit, obviously. So with worst case scenario for the Packers, if everything goes wrong other than their game and the Vikings win that game, the Packers fall to the 7 seed. All right. If the Packers win that game, then they're going to maintain in the 6 seed. So that's, again, worst case scenario. That's with Washington winning their game over the Falcons. Okay. So how important is the 6th seed as opposed to the 7th? Is it important enough to try to rush Ja back and maybe miss him for the playoffs? Same thing with Christian Watson. You understand what I'm saying? That's really
Yeah.
what's on the line.
Can you do Atlanta beating Washington?
Yep, absolutely. So
Okay,
if Atlanta,
and then if we had a loss, hypothetically,
we're still
so
6th seed.
we'd still be the 6th.
Yep.
Okay, so we do want the Falcons then to get the win probably. Yeah, I'm with you though, Clay. I think whether you're facing the Rams in the first round or you're off to the city of brotherly love to face the Eagles, I think either way you probably don't want to rush your guys back, right? Because you're definitely going to need all all your ammunition to play against teams like LA and Philly. Two teams that are damn good football teams, not pushovers at all. So I think you're right, man. I don't think you rush it right now at this point. And at this point, look how long Ja's been out. My gosh, it's like we're almost used to it at this point.
It really is, man.
It's sad to say, but
that's something else
you rush him back out there. I really don't.
Yeah. And again, you're in the playoffs. So the cost, the risk comparison there, the analysis you do is what's it worth? Is it worth it to potentially lose these guys for the playoffs to win another game and climb up in the seeding? I'm going to say no. And we know historically, based off precedent, the Packers are very, very conservative with their injuries, right? So that's another thing that kind of comes into play there. It's going to be interesting. In my opinion, I would sit on both, and it sucks because you want to go up there and smack Minnesota in the mouth. But if they're not 100%, I know nobody's 100% right now, but I'm talking about if they cannot do their job, totally effective, then let's sit them out, And I know that's going to piss
we know Ja has a serious injury. Like that's a major knee issue going on there with the PCL. So definitely.
And that's going to be I know it's going to piss fans off with that opinion. If I had not taken the time the last 15 minutes and kind of dove into that and looked at the pros, the cons, it would probably made me mad too. Like, hey, you need to get out there. Because like what Nick says here, it's a good point. Nick McSwain says Ja's been practicing but hasn't played a game in a while. He's going to be rusty in the playoffs. It's a good point. Like, you got to get out there and see game time, And let's be honest, those practices aren't grueling this time of year. They really taper those off the longer the year goes along. So I think it's a great point, Nick. It really is. It's going to be interesting to see what's happening. So Donovan Schilling getting on the folks in there. He says 53 watching and 11 likes. What the F is wrong with us? Calm down, Donovan. It's okay. But if you guys would, we appreciate you, Donovan. Take a quick second, hit that like button for us. It's my fault for not mentioning it. Man.
Donovan came in here like
up with the piss hot, man. No doubt about that. So again, what it comes down to, this is worst case scenario right here. If everything goes wrong and the Packers lose to the Vikings, they fall to the 7th seed. If we were to go to 18 and all of a sudden the Packers win in week 18 and the Washington Commanders, let's say that they win as well, they're going to hold on to the 6th seed. But if they lose to the Cowboys in Dallas, we can get the 6th seed right back. So yeah, I'm definitely team. Let's hit those guys. You know what I'm saying? Let's don't, if you're not 100% sure, hey, look, there's no chance of aggravating that injury. It's hard to do that, I know. Yeah. I would say, hey, let's just hit those guys.
I mean, especially looking at the defensive side. I mean, look at the play we're getting out of our secondary. I mean, we just talked about Eric Stokes surprising a lot of us with the way he's been playing these past couple of games. You've got Carrington Valentine, who's stepping up and, proving to be a bona fide star in the cornerback room on this defense. And then Keyshawn Nixon, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Versatility, playing really good football for us. So we get a guy like Evan Williams back in the mix, here pretty soon, or we get Bullard back. We're going to be stronger. So I would agree with the point that there's no need to rush Jair back onto the field for sure. And then as far as the Christian Watson deal, give me some Bo Melton. No problem.
Yep.
But give me some Bo Melton and let's just run the same offense. Let Scoot sit a game. We'll see you for the Bears, and we'll roll into the playoffs. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. No matter who's out there, what's going to determine the winner of that game is going to be protecting the football. That's what we did not do the first time, right? And I know we forced the turnover as Xavier McKinney intercepted a pass there on Sam Darnold. If I remember correctly, it was a little kind of leak out of the backfield with Aaron Jones on a corner route, which X just broke off of his assignment and made one hell of a play. But you got to protect the football, right? That's going to be the main thing, and control that middle eight. And no matter who's on the field, you got a chance to win that ball game.
Yep.
It's not like Christian Watson being out there or Jair being out there is like, okay, that's the missing piece that's going to allow us to beat the Vikings. I just simply I don't see football that way. It increases your chances, but this thought that one player is, oh man, that's going to make all the difference.
Not on a team like the Packers, not like this Packers team. Other teams, right? Maybe they miss a top tier receiver. It might throw everything out of whack for them. But this Packers team is young and has depth in the receiver room. That's no secret, right?
Yeah, no doubt, man. So we got to be careful with this. Obviously, this is a telecast, but I want to play the audio for you guys. If you could throw me something up here real quick, Tim, just to cover the screen so the AI doesn't trigger a copyright. Obviously, this was on the Thursday Night Prime game last night. Doesn't matter which one it is either. I put a tweet out. So I said, the Chicago Bears down by 3, less than a minute, let 20 seconds run off the clock. Rush the play only for the pass to fall incomplete. Then let the play clock run down and burn a timeout. Literally lose 4 plays on the potential game-winning drive. This organization is so damn bad. Listen to Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit respond to this.
Got no audio, Clay.
No, for real? Oh, I ain't got it on the screen there. I'm watching it by myself. Here you go, guys. Sorry. Thank you, Tim. Here we go.
To keep this drive alive. From here, you're looking at a 57-yard field goal, and Chicago has to take a timeout here. Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. Listen to the boos.
I mean, they're already seeing this clock management.
Sell the team. Team.
Those chants broke out later. So again, this is football 101. This is Bill Belichick 101. Michael Lombardi talks about it a lot on his podcast. Is when you get to the end of the game, you're no longer looking at the clock and going, how much time do we got? You're going, how many plays do we got? And, I don't know what the average is. Some people say you can run a play in 5 seconds. Others say it's closer to 8 seconds. Let's put it somewhere in the middle at 7, right? So if you got less than a minute left and you allow 20 seconds to run off the clock, okay, that's 3 plays minimum. So you're missing out on 3 plays on that specific drive, right? And this is potentially the game-winning drive. You miss 3 plays, and then they come to the line of scrimmage, right? And the ball falls incomplete and stops the clock. So there's the 4th play that you wasted. And then on top of that, Tim, they let the play clock run down, and they had to use the timeout. Like, think about that. If you had burned the timeout as soon as the play was up, my rule of thumb is you use all your timeouts but 1, right? You save 1, especially when it's a 3-point game.
Yeah, for the field goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the goal is, if you've got a timeout and you're tackled in the middle of the field, and if there's any kind of game whatsoever, call the timeout. And now you got 1, and okay, the next play is a clock play. You're in the driver's seat. They do everything bass-ackwards in Chicago. I mean, it is unbelievable how bad they are at just the simplicity of managing the game. It's so bad.
Still suck.
And again, it's just like, this happened earlier in the year. It was Shane Waldron's fault. It happened midway through the year. It's Matt Eberflus's fault. It's happening now. And I wish I could show you the video, but again, we don't want to get hit with it. But basically what happened was, let me cover that screen for me real quick, Tim.
What had happened was Mr. Pretty Boy came to town. And
yeah, exactly. So basically, what you've got is he's involved with every one of these situations, right? Every one of these situations. And everybody goes, man, that's on the coaching staff. Man, that's on the OC. Man, that's on the new OC or the new head coach. It's like, no. Your quarterback is the CEO, the general of your team. If you're going to sell the franchise, if you're going to invest that high of a pick on a guy, he damn sure better be able to do something that he should have been able to do in college. The problem is he didn't do these things in college. When you hear about Caleb Williams in college, it was, man, look at the generational talent. Look at the ability for him to scramble around and throw on the run. All those things are great, but you never heard of him going, wow, that was a high football IQ play right there. It's just constantly something around him where, we talk about the sacks. We talk about the offensive line, how bad they are. Guys, he is holding the ball. It's one read, let me dance around for 6 seconds, then take the sack. It's, well, this offensive line's bad. The offensive line is bad, don't get me wrong. But I promise these coaches aren't telling him, hey, listen, bub, let's just force the ball down the field. And what's crazy is you don't see him throwing the ball down the field either. It's either throw a smoke route or run around like a chicken with your head cut off. It's just unbelievable. I mean, seriously, it's wild. So the other part of this, keep that up for me a second. The Bears got booed off the field. That was their final home game of the season. And I'm saying this because we're over here as Packer fans at times complaining about, man, we only won by 34 points. You know what I'm saying? You got to put things into perspective sometimes, right? So they moved off the field, and I wish I could play it. But during the post game, the Chicago Bears fans were chanting, sell the team is what they were chanting. And then shortly after that, they started chanting, go Pack, go. Tim, I have never seen this in my life. Post-game show, there's no Packer fans there, right? The Bears fans, to troll their organization, started chanting, go Pack, go on Thursday Night Football's telecast while they were doing the post-game show.
It could be that, or it could also be the common hatred of both Minnesota and Detroit that Packers and Bears fans share equally. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's probably a little of that. But, yeah, I mean, how terrible. I mean, you can smell the dumpster fire all the way from up here, man. It's bad.
And again, when you build the organization backwards, this is what happens. You went out and you got you went out and you got weapons, right? You went out and you said, okay, let's go get, let's draft Rome Odunze. Think about that. With all the offensive linemen that were sitting on the board. And listen, you got to be right. You got to be correct and pick the right offensive lineman. But of all the offensive linemen sitting on the board at that spot that they took Rome Odunze, you chose to go with a wide receiver after you traded for DJ Moore and after you signed Keenan Allen. Like, what are we doing here?
So I got a quarterback, a bunch of receivers, nobody to block.
Yep. And they don't have any leadership in the building whatsoever.
They don't have any leadership in that huddle either. You talk about Caleb Williams, and you're right. It's a guy with nearly all of the physical attributes you want in a young quarterback, right? The arm talent, we talk about that, right? Mobility, we talk about that. But man, the leadership, when he huddles up, he looks like he's, I don't know.
Yeah.
He looks like a substitute teacher trying to get the class to pay attention. And we all know that nobody pays attention to the substitute teacher. So I think it's a leadership issue when it comes to Caleb. It really is.
It is. It absolutely is. Everywhere he's been the head honcho. He's been the top dog. It's everybody worships him. And we knew when he came in the league, but you're going to get some humble pie quick, right? And again, when you watch him come off the field on that play, what's he doing? He's chirping at the coaching staff like it's their fault. And listen, they're partly to blame. They should have called a timeout. Again, that situation, they should have called a timeout. But why didn't Caleb call a timeout? Here's the thing. If you're going to chirp after things go wrong, you better have the huevos to do the right thing in the moment. Don't complain afterwards like, okay, well, I should have called a timeout, but this is your fault. I'm telling you, man. And he's young. He's got a chance to fix that next year. Sure. But right now, we're seeing exactly what we've seen in college. It's let me go find my mom, crawl into her arms and cry because things went wrong. And again, it's not that he's sensitive is why I'm knocking him here. You got to understand me. I could care less about the fingernails, and I know people have fun with it, and it is hilarious that the jokes and everything. But forget the fingernails, forget the purse, forget the pink case, forget the lipstick, all that stuff that he's been accused of doing, right? It's attention. It's I want attention. I want attention is what it screams, right? But also, when he climbed into his mom's arms, it had nothing to do with, oh, I'm making fun of him because he's a sensitive human being. No. As the leader of your team, those other 10 guys that were in that huddle with you, they are just as upset as you are. And as the leader, you've got to be the one to go pick them up. And he didn't do that. It was, I need someone to hold me. Here we are, chirping at the coaches. He was chirping at Shane Waldron all year. He was chirping at Eberflus. He was chirping at the defense. He was chirping at the special teams when they got the kick blocked there at the end of the game, knowing damn well he didn't do enough to win the game. It's just it's bad leadership for sure. King Tron with the super chat. Sorry we didn't see it a second ago, but he says, I hate to say it, but sometimes with the amount of talent we have in the receiving room, Watson being out means the ball moves even more than usual. Go, Pack, go. It's a good point that, if a team has to key in on one target there, one player, it's a little bit easier to stop that, especially when that player isn't like Randy Moss. Nobody's saying Christian Watson is that guy. And you have to really focus on multiple. That's why Tucker Kraft's lighting it up, Tim. I mean, they're 1 second they're having to clamp down on the crossers from Jaden Reed. The next second they're having to clamp down on the shot play to Christian Watson. They're having to play Romeo Dobbs within the phone booth and try to put. You seen on that third and 7 play we showed, I think it was, where he got 15 yards, 3 defenders right around him, and still just made the play in that tight window throw. When you got to focus on all 3 or 4 of those targets, man, it's absolutely huge. So, King Tron, thank you for the super chat, bud. We appreciate you. Yep. Sticking with the Bears here again, I just wanted to hit on it because it's not, hey, let's get on here and make fun of the Bears. I try not to like run a show like that. We'll have our fun with it. Don't get me wrong, but there's something to be learned. Like, what went wrong with this organization? There's no leadership at the top. There's none. And you say, okay, Clayton, why does the Green Bay Packers have so much success? Mark Murphy, football guy. Board of directors full of people like Leroy Butler and other guys that are football people, and they're making decisions together, trickling down to Brian Gutekunst, who got to work under Ted Thompson, who got to work under Ron Wolf, who got to work under Al Davis, right? And then head coach Matt LaFleur, who got to work under Sean McVay, who got to work under Kyle Shanahan, who got to work under Kubiak, who got to work under Papa Shanahan, right? You have football people just littered throughout the organization
from the top down.
Yep. And Chicago don't have anybody. They don't. They think
we have a building full of people that hold each other accountable, and they don't point fingers. And if there's an issue, they try to work together to figure out a solution. And if there's anyone in that building that doesn't have that attitude, they're not around for long, and they're easily identified, and they're looking for a new job before you know it, because winning isn't everything. It's the only thing.
Yeah. And again, man, it's one word. It's culture. Yep. People casual fans roll their eyes when they hear that. I'm telling you, man, it doesn't matter if it's a business, if it's a sports organization, whatever it is, a household, you've got to have culture. A marriage, you got to have culture.
Yep.
You got to have a culture of, hey, look, hell or high water, we got each other's back.
That's right.
Turning on each other.
Otherwise, what the hell are you doing it for, right?
Exactly.
Why even be here? Why even do it?
Right.
Such
Judy in the chat says, am I watching an episode from a month ago? Oh, no, the Bears just buried again. It's so true, man. And again, they never learn. Cannonball John, he also is selling out his players on TV with grimaces and arm gestures.
Great comment. That's why I highlighted that one. Every time you see him do that, right? He's shrugging the shoulders and he's shaking his head. It's like there's not an ounce of accountability in that kid's body, man. There just isn't. And, maybe coming out and crapping the bed your rookie season, maybe you learn the hard way if you're a young quarterback in this league, and this is how it goes, because disappointing is probably an understatement at this point. And I don't know if leaders are born or made, but Caleb's going to have to make himself into a leader if they want to find any kind of success in this stacked NFC North. The Bears are going to continue to be the laughing stock of the division until something changes there, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And again, it's just, we talked about this during draft time. As soon as the draft was over, you guys know I was pretty vocal, and I got raked over the coals for it. Like, if I was Chicago, I would be trying to trade back with Washington if they like Caleb, because I would rather have Jaden Daniels. I understand if you want to take Caleb over Jaden, because I think he does have a little bit more natural talent, Caleb does. So I get that aspect, and GMs love it. Me personally, I like Jaden better and my draft board shows Caleb above Jaden. But when people ask me which one do you like better, I like both Drake May and Jaden Daniels better than Caleb. And you'll notice the people that were commenting in the comments going, well, this quarterback did that at this time. And it's not to say that Caleb's going to be bad. You don't see them anymore. They went quiet. That's usually how that works, right? Because it's more than just who has the most talent. This is the same argument we have with the first round picks being those physical freaks, right? It's more than just that. It's with the game on the line, who's going to dig the deepest, right? Who loves the game more? Those things, in my opinion, matter just as much, if not more, than talent. What I'm saying is,
look at Zane Anderson. He's a great example of that. We talked about him yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Here's a guy, bottom barrel depth chart, special teamer guy. We get some injuries. He steps into a starting role and balls out. Why? Because he practices his ass off. He's in the film room. He wants to get better every day, and he's taking accountability.
Yeah. At Fezzik Sports, Steve Fezzik, if you guys don't follow him, is a good follow. He does a lot of work with Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. He said anyone in a redraft that would take Williams over May, Daniels, or Nix isn't watching these games. And it's so well put. Because when you watch the games, if you're truly watching the games from an evaluation standpoint, it's the casual fans that you hear going, this ain't Caleb's fault. This ain't Caleb's fault. Because when you get in these crucial situations, he is not acting like one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He's just not. And again, the sacks, taking the sacks is just unbelievable. Some of it is on the offensive line, don't get me wrong. And what he said about Nix, you guys can go back and pull one of our podcasts. I had played a couple of clips where the GOAT, Greg Cosell, interviewed Bo Nix, and they just talked football, right? They talked FBI. And one of the things he said was you could focus on the sandbacker and the boundary safety, and it gives you all the information you need to know of what the defense is. And I went, whoa, this kid gets it. Like, because you're looking for commonalities in specific defenses. If the boundary safety is lined up in a certain split and the sandbacker is on the line of scrimmage or off the line of scrimmage, it will tip the hand of what the defense is most likely doing, because it's much more difficult to sugar in those specific positions. There's certain positions you can sugar a lot, like the inside linebackers. We sugar them all the time, right? You can sugar those and disguise pretty much 90% of your looks on the field. But that, telling you, man, that boundary safety will tell you a lot about what the defense is. They really will. It's very, very rare you get someone like Xavier McKinney who could come down and buzz the box and then drop back and play opposite quarter. Right, that just doesn't happen very often. That's Ed Reed type stuff.
Yep.
But love what Steve Fezzik said there. Again, if you're truly watching the game, and that's why the draft gurus and the people that were standing on the hill for Caleb Williams earlier in the year, you don't see them anywhere. This right here, if you know what to look for, this is exactly what you're seeing. Drake May's a better quarterback. Jaden Daniels is, and Bo Nix. It's not to say that Caleb can't be a good quarterback, but boy, he's going to have to lower that ego. And so it would take somebody like Sean Payton to come in, Tim, and be like, hey, listen, knucklehead. Because you've seen Sean Payton eating Bo Nix's lunch right there on national television. Could you imagine if a coach did that?
Look at Denver. Look at what Denver did and turned themselves around. My gosh, were they a dumpster fire not too long ago? And, it's amazing what a change in leadership and accountability can do for your team, because you're right. You need to be a student of the game if you're a quarterback in the NFL, period. I mean, if you're a player in the NFL, you need to be a student of the game. You got to know what the hell you're doing out there. RAS scores don't mean nothing if you don't know where the hell you're supposed to be and what to do. And you don't see that with Caleb. I don't think Caleb is a film room junkie. I don't think he at least he doesn't seem that way. Could be wrong. But, we see, Instagram posts of Jordan Love on the couch, looking at the tablet, spending quality time with the missus. And he's looking at film on his own time away from the facility, let alone the hours he spends, at 1265 studying. So I think you got to be a student of the game first.
You definitely do. And find me a clip of a coach jumping on Caleb Williams this year. You won't find it. It's nowhere to be seen. Nowhere. Is that true?
I don't know, but it's hilarious. Michael says, I see Caleb taking dogs to a salon.
Oh, man. That wouldn't surprise me. So anyway, there was a lot of stuff. And again, I had to throw Michael Jordan into this tweet because you guys remember on Hard Knocks how the opening was the same intro they used for Michael Jordan, but they used it for Caleb Williams on Hard Knocks, like he's going to be the next Michael Jordan. And it's like, boy, oh boy, Or y'all setting this kid up for failure? I just had to quote tweet this dude, and obviously MJ staring down at the tweet. This is what the guy said here. Follows that. He said, this was back in December, guys. I think Caleb Williams has I believe it was December. Is that when it was? Let's see here. December 26, 2023. I think Caleb Williams has a legitimate shot to win MVP as a rookie on the Chicago Bears. There's talent around him, especially with the new OC. Bookmark it.
Oh, we did. Receipts aplenty.
Shane Waldron is the OC he's talking about, the one that got axed what feel like 6 months ago.
Yep.
Yeah. So, again, the receipts are aplenty. There's no doubt about it. Tim, if you will give me a screen grab of Caleb laying on the bench here, I want you to hear his response in the press conference real quick, okay? This is absolutely wild. And I gave a translation here. I said, translation, they sucked before I got here. This isn't my fault. And I said the signs were always there for Caleb not being a leader. The question is, can he change? As for year one, he failed the test. To be continued. Here's what he said in the presser last night after the game.
Yeah, I've only been here for, it's my first year. So, their frustrations, go way longer back than I've been here. My job is to, go out there and win games. And, we don't focus on outside noise. The fans are.
You just created outside noise.
What
you don't even realize.
Freaking bum, dude.
You don't even realize.
You're a bum, Caleb Williams.
Again, listen to the comment. I'm going to play it again. Listen to the first comment. And then he says, we're not going to focus on outside noise. Listen to this.
Yeah, I've only been here for, it's my first year. So, their frustrations, go way longer back than I've been here. My job is to, go out there and win games. And, we don't focus
do your
on
job,
noise.
Caleb.
The fans are, they're going to cheer and maybe boo sometimes. And, you can't react to that. It's not something that, we react to. We have a job to do. And, sometimes, you don't do so well on the job some days, and some days you're pretty consistent. Some days you play a great game. So
again, here's the translation. They sucked before I got here. That's why they suck now. It has nothing to do with me. And, I don't care enough that the fans are booing. Sorry, it don't bother me. That's what I'm hearing, Tim. So I thought that was absolutely wild, man, that was his response. I'm curious to see, am I overreacting? What's the chat think about that? Because I looked at that like, what in the world did he just say? What did he just say? It seems like, yeah. Everybody agrees. Yeah. Listen to him answering the clock management question bad. I haven't even heard that one, Casey. I don't want to hear it, to be honest with you. J. Cole, that's not how you answer that question. Yeah. It's just wild, man. Again, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but this is like how to not run an organization 101. And that's why I felt like we needed to hit it this morning. And now we're going to get into like some Packers injury news. And all
don't forget, it's super interesting that he makes the comment about them being, a dumpster fire before he got there, because we all knew that he was trying to avoid the Bears like the plague when he was, being drafted. We're putting our draft boards together. He had made comments, first of all, we all know Caleb's a Packer fan, right? We know that.
Unfortunately.
We know that. We don't really want to claim him, but, deep down, he really loves him some Green Bay Packers. He did not want to be a Chicago Bear. So here's a guy who didn't want to get drafted by this team, got drafted by this team. They gave him a bunch of receivers. They gave him no linemen. And here he is pointing the finger.
Yep. Kieran Forrest in the chat says, hey, Tim, I was watching the game last night, and that's what I was saying, that it doesn't seem like this kid is watching any tape of his play up to this point. And again, in college, Tim, he didn't have to. It's, hey, man, I'm just going to go out here and make a play. NFL is a different beast, boys.
Yeah. I mean, 80% of the guys you played against in college are, they're working on their masters right now and, starting a career in another industry. They're not even playing ball anymore. Yep. You're playing the best of the best. The bottom barrel players in the NFL are light years ahead of any of these other guys you played against in college. And the old college try ain't going to work in the pros there, Caleb. I totally agree with Kieran right here for sure. I don't think he even knows what self-scouting is. I really don't.
Could you imagine how he would respond if someone like Sean Payton or even Matt LaFleur, anyone, jumped down his throat because he made a bad decision. You think he's going to absorb that coaching? It's not going to happen.
Yep.
And I heard something. I think it's Lincoln Riley that coached him. I believe it was at Oklahoma. And then when Lincoln Riley went to USC, I could have the names mixed up. You guys confirm for me in here. Is it Lincoln Riley? I think it's Lincoln Riley at USC. And when he went to USC, Caleb said he wanted to come with him. And Lincoln Riley made a comment, something along the lines of, well, it's you're going to have to earn the scholarship or something like that. So it was almost like the way I took it at the time was that shade? Nah, maybe it wasn't. I just moved on. There was a comment that Lincoln Riley made, but I'm pretty sure that's who the coach is. Whoever the coach was that left, Caleb followed him to USC. Now, here's the thing. He won a Heisman the year before his final year in college, right? Okay, that's great. He won a Heisman. Did they win a championship? No. Got it. Okay, cool. And then you go to his last year in college, and it's okay. How did he do there? That video, it's my understanding that video of him crying in his mama's arms was them losing in the playoff or losing that got him eliminated from the playoffs. So that's how he responded to that was someone hold me. It's a wild scene. Anyway, that's going to do it for hour one. We will see you guys on the other side over on the pod for hour two. We appreciate y'all. All right, so we covered that pretty extensively there with Caleb Williams. Here in hour two, we're going to jump into some more Packers talk. Again, we gave you the playoff simulation outlook early, but I wanted to hit on that Caleb Williams thing because it's important to kind of learn from this stuff. And I know we had a lot of people, we had a few people in the chat that are no longer in the chat that were constantly defending Caleb. Oh, no, and you don't hear from them now. It's not that to say, hey, we were right. It's to learn from it. Like, that's the type of stuff you look for in a prospect and go, whoa, that worries me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like when you look at some of the players that the Packers have drafted and you went and spent a bunch of money in free agency, it's not a coincidence that Brian Gutekunst went out and got Xavier McKinney, who was a team captain for the Giants, and he went and got Josh Jacobs, who was a team captain for the Raiders. Culture freaking matters. Those are two really bad football teams that they just plucked two leaders out of and put on a good football team. And now you got people like Josh Jacobs in the locker room almost in tears when asked about the playoffs. Like just so blessed, so fortunate to be a part of a playoff run. It's just really, really cool, man. So,
so we might as well cap off the Bears conversation with one more.
The Bears still suck.
Exactly. So that'll put a little stamp on the Bears talk there for the day. We did our own Ryan Schlipp version of laughing at the enemy there a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah, kind of did. That's awesome. Shout out to Pack Daddy.
I can't wait to hear his. He's going to have some fun with that. That whole debacle. That's who you want to go for that type of content for sure.
Oh yeah, Ryan is so good at that. I love when he trashes the Bears. It's just stuff of legend.
All right, so Matt Schneidman tweeted out Javon Bullard back at practice after missing the last two games with an ankle injury. So he's back out there. You can see Bullard moving around. Again, this isn't like 11 on 11 or anything, but to me, he looks like he doesn't have any kind of limp. Looks pretty good there, taking on a block, shedding. Looks like the ankle's good. We'll see, right?
Looks like they got him running at 75% game speed, kind of, not full speed, but not half-assing it. I think he looks like he's moved. I mean, man, if we get him back in the lineup, everyone's talking about Scoot and Jair. I'd love to see Javon Bullard back in the lineup, even if that does move, Keyshawn to the boundary, or perhaps maybe Zane Anderson back off the field and Bull goes back to the other safety, and we run with Keyshawn in the slot. Who knows? But I'd love to see him back.
Yeah. And it says Christian Watson with the knee, Evan Williams with the quad, Quay Walker with the ankle, Tyron Hopper with the ankle, and Elton Jenkins with the veteran rest aren't practicing. Now, we heard mixed reviews yesterday, mixed reports, I should say, Tim, that with Elton Jenkins, it was a knee. It wasn't veteran rest. Now, you guys know we covered it a few weeks ago where they had both knee and veteran rest listed. This time, I believe it was just listed as a knee, but it sounds like it's a legit, hey, you got to watch that knee. Yeah, it's just a knee listed on the official injury report. So that's something to keep our eye on there with Big E. Another player that you're looking at this week and going, you know what? We could still probably lock up the 6th seed next week. Why not rest these guys and make sure that they don't tweak something, you're treating this like you would week 6, right, Tim? You really are. Because in week 6, you think there's enough football left. You don't want to put these guys full season in jeopardy. And you're looking at it now like, okay, we got a playoff berth. You don't want to put the playoffs in jeopardy. Let's get these guys healthy. So anything you want to add there as far as the injury report? Again, it's good to see Bullard back. If he does come back, he will be playing probably – that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Dude, here's the real question, Tim. It just hit me too live here in the air. If Javon Bullard plays and Evan Williams doesn't, do you put Javon Bullard at safety and pull Zane out, have Keyshawn play the slot and put Carrington on the outside along with Eric Stokes? Or do you say, no, let's put Javon Bullard at the safety position. You take Zane out of the lineup, you put Keyshawn in the slot, and you play both Stokes and Bowden. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. And you'll probably see mix and match throughout the game too. But what do you think about that?
I'm with Coach Len in the chat here. I think Zane needs to stay out there. You know, I commented about those prospects, right? It could go a couple ways, but you know, really, Keyshawn's been playing really good on the boundary when we've asked him to this year. And if that means we have better rotation as far as Stokes, Valentine, and Nixon with our corners, and then you've got, you know, put Bullard in the slot and let's let Zane Anderson stay out there on that opposite safety from X and roll like that, you know, and then because you never know. Hey, let's be honest. If he's coming back from injury, we don't know how many snaps he's going to play. We don't know, you know, how well he's going to play out there with movement and mobility, those kind of things. Game speed is a whole different ballgame than practice. So I don't know, man. I think I'm with Coach Len. I think you put Bullard in the slot.
No,
because if we had to scramble, we could instantly just boop. We put Keyshawn back in the slot. Zane stays where he is, you know, and our corners have to step up like they did the last 2 weeks. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. Drew D says, would you ever consider Jair in the slot if Bullard is out and Nixon on the outside with Valentine? Listen, I think that Nixon is better on the outside. Now, his ability to blitz and that nickel fire, I mean, he's as good as anyone. Probably the best on this team at that nickel fire blitz. But how often are you going to run that, right? He, to me, looks more comfortable in coverage on the outside. So I can understand what you're saying there. The question again, would you ever consider Jair in the slot? I would consider anything, to be honest with you. You know, if you go to your nickel, put Jair in the slot, yeah, but if you're going off of what will they do precedent, I don't see that happening, Tim, unless they really face a slot receiver. They go, let's put John him 90% of the time, and even when we're in zone coverage, have him line up over him. That's the only way I could see that scenario. So my answer would probably be no, Drew. I understand what you're saying. It's an interesting comment because that does get Nixon on the outside and throw Valentine on the opposite side. It would set you up pretty nice there. I
might say yes if we weren't dealing with a Jair that has a knee issue and has missed 7 games.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I don't know if we want to. Oh, he's cleared to play and he's back in the lineup. Let's throw him in the slot. I don't think that's going to be a good look for us. Now, in a perfect world, we got a healthy team, and yeah, we lost Bullard, and you want to start mixing and matching with your personnel, and maybe looking at, like you said, who is the slot receiver in the lineup against the team you're playing. Maybe you do move Jair in there, because I'm with you. I do like. I pleasantly surprised. I like Keyshawn Nixon on the boundary. But I don't know if Ja going into the slot coming off an injury is really going to help us going forward.
I think it's a fair point. Badger Trio with the Super Chat. Appreciate you, buddy. Says, do you guys think Alexander is a Packer next year? It just depends. You guys know my stance on this. I think that the Packers will go to Ja and look for a restructure. And it doesn't mean necessarily pay cut, although it will save you cap. I think they'll look to guarantee a portion of his salary to free up more cap space, right? Which essentially means he's going to take less overall money, but more guaranteed money. So it's give and take to free up some cap space, probably to the tune of half of his salary, maybe a little bit less than that. That's what I would expect. And again, I chart this every year, and I kind of go back and go, okay, timeline when the restructures happened, which players did they restructure? I think last year, Tim, we had 7 potentials, and I think it was 5 of those 7 potential restructures hit on, and we were within $1 million or $2 million of what the restructure was, so we knocked that out of the park predicting it. I think that's what will happen, Badger Trio. Now, if they go to Ja and do that, and Ja goes, nope, I want it to stay the same, maybe he's not a Packer, right? You know, if you buck on Goody like that, I could see Goody being like, let's just ship him off. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But again, I think the most possible scenario is that they free up some cap space with a restructure of the salary, converting salary to signing bonus, and then spreading that out over a few years to free up a little cap space. But as of right now, the Packers are not in cap hell. They got like over $60 million in cap space next year. But you got a lot of players coming up for money. And the question is, do you want to absorb some of that cap hit on those extensions in the first year of the contract, or actually move it up to the current year that's not even a part of the new extension to free up cap space on down the road? That could be the case too. So, Tim, what do you think here? You think Ja's a Packer next year?
I'm with you in lockstep on this one. We talk about 50-50 chances, right? Flip a coin. Let's see how this goes. But it's going to be really tough. If Jair does, like you said, he says, "Oh no, I want the money. Y'all paid me the bag. I'm not taking a pay cut." Well, that's not a good argument if you missed 50 to 60% of the season for us, and you're not willing to work with the team. Then I think the writing will be on the wall at that point, and Gangster Goody will make a move. I 100% agree with that. But I also do think, with Jair and the last couple seasons he's had, the suspension last year and kind of the shift in leadership and attitude adjustment that we saw almost immediately. It's just unfortunate that this year, he's got the knee issue. I do want to hold out hope for my guy. Ja's always been one of my favorites since the day we drafted him. And, I got to think that he's not the same kid we drafted, and I think he's matured a little bit, maybe even a lot. And maybe he is willing to work and take a restructure because he wants to be a Packer. Because I think a trade scenario is not impossible, but it would be kind of tough, looking at what he's got on tape recently, which is not a lot, and looking at a ginormous contract that comes with him, might be tough, to get a trade done. So I'm hoping Ja plays ball literally and figuratively. And, he is a Packer going forward. I think we're a better team with him. I do. I might be in the minority on that, but I think Ja makes us better when he's on the field.
I think he does too, when he's on the field. You're exactly right. I really do. But is he going to be on the field? That's the big question, right? And that's the tough decisions that GMs have to make.
Yep.
And again, just for those who are wondering, well, how much money can we save? It's to the tune of about $6 million that we can save by just cutting him outright next year. So that's why I think it makes more sense to go to him, convert salary to signing bonus, while him agreeing to take a pay cut in salary. That way you free up more than $6 million, so you're coming out better. That's that cost analysis comparison, right? Like you're looking, okay, here's one plan. What's the pros and cons of it? Here's the other plan. Here's the pros and cons of it. Which one makes the most sense, right? And laying that out. To me, if he doesn't take the restructure, you can free up $6 million. But if you get him to restructure, you free up more than $6 million, and you get Jair back. And who knows, maybe he stays healthy all year. It's a win-win, and you've got plenty of cap space to make that work. The question is he going to buck on that idea? And if he does, are the Packers just going to go, you know what, we already had to suspend him once. It's just time to move on. Well, it's just part friends. We'll see you back in the Packer Hall of Fame here in a few years. It could be something like that. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out next year. Coach Lynn says, better question is does Ja accept the restructure? That's going to be the key to the whole thing for sure. Drew D, I think we will keep Jair, but if we lose him, we have to buy a cornerback in free agency. So when you kind of look at how these corners have graded, and we could go to PFF. I don't have the tab pulled up right now. But we could kind of compare, okay, what cornerbacks remove the minimum filter, right? What cornerbacks are grading out in terms of Carrington Valentine? How well is he grading out? I personally see Carrington. You know what? We might as well just do it. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick, Tim. I'm going to see if I can pull up PFF, and let's go to corners, and let's remove some of the noise. We're just going to go strictly by position here. We'll go coverage. Actually, we'll go overall defensive grades amongst cornerbacks. Yeah, that was actually pretty quick if I can get this on the screen. Let me pop this off real quick. Give me just a second. And let's see if it makes sense, Drew. It really does, because you may have the answer on your roster already, right? We talk about this all the time. So let's go. This is defense cornerbacks, right? And we're going to go overall defensive grade. It's already sorted this across the NFL. We're going to remove the 20% of the 1,048, okay? So this is filtering out some of those high-graded players that haven't seen a lot of snaps, right? So a very small sample size. Jair is 14th in the league right now at a 75.2. So a legit number one corner if you were to just compare apples to apples as if PFF was everything, right? And then you scroll down, where's the next Green Bay corner? It's Carrington Valentine at 50. 50, obviously 14 spots well within that top 64, which would make him a solid number two corner, right? Grading out of 67.7. So now the question becomes, if you do lose Jair Alexander, is it enough of a hole for you to go out and spend extra money in free agency to get a solid corner? Now the question becomes who's available. Because let's be real here, Tim.
Yeah, I don't want a solid corner pushing 30.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want to overpay for good. And Drew, I know Drew's not saying this. We're just kind of thinking out loud. Yep. You don't want to overpay for good. You will overpay for great. Perfect example, Xavier McKinney. Although we didn't overpay, you'd be willing to overpay for that kind of service, right? Josh Jacobs, you're willing to overpay for great, not good, period. Yep. So if you
I think Drew's right, though, right? I mean, there's a possibility you look to free agency. We're not dismissing that, but it's like we don't know what that group of corners is going to look like. Mm-hmm. And I'd almost rather have the logic of get younger, right? Get younger if you have to, or like you said, maybe the guy is already here. Maybe it's Kalen King for all we know. Who knows?
It could be. It could be. And again, Carrington, I feel really good about Carrington and Keyshawn being on the boundary. We know the Packers absolutely love Javon Bullard in the slot, although I disagree that I don't think he's played that well, but he's a rookie. We'll see what happens, right? So if you've got your slot defender of the future in Javon Bullard, which I think that's the way they see him, because they see Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney as the safeties. You've got Keyshawn Nixon, who's played pretty damn good on the outside. You've got Carrington Valentine, who's grading out as number 50 here, right? I'd like to see – let's see if we can find Keyshawn. I know PFF's been pretty hard on him. But let's see. And again, PFF isn't everything, but let's just kind of see where Keyshawn falls. He falls in at 62, so right there within, top two cornerback, right, at 65.8.
And right down there with all of those older named guys, right? Stephon Gilmore is in that cropping, right?
Shaquille Griffin.
Yeah, you're seeing these are the guys that you're talking about when you talk about free agency, that names like that tend to pop up. So if you've got talent that matches that level in-house, then I think you roll with your guys, right?
Yeah, and we know that Goody, like DiCaprio, he likes to keep it young. That's how he rolls there. We need to do a Photoshop of him on the Titanic on DiCaprio's body is what we need to do. That seems to be a thing.
Call up Justin, man. Let's get it done.
So when we're talking, you're willing to overpay for great, not overpay for good, right? This is what you're looking at here. I would be willing to overpay for a Pat Surtain at an 84, a Trent McDuffie at an 83.1, a Cooper DeJean, boy, that still hurts me.
He ain't going nowhere.
80.9. Christian Benford, I don't know who he is in Buffalo, but an 80.1, solid grade there. Marlon Humphrey, 79.6. When you're talking great, I really see great as 80 and above on PFF, and one of those guys that's just top 10 in passer rating when targeted, right? Those type of guys. So here's the problem. These guys are not going to be available, right? Like Trent McDuffie, if I remember correctly, he came from Kansas City. I think they had to trade for him and work out a deal, a long-term deal, big deal. So, are you willing to overpay for some of these guys, right? That's the question. And you're seeing some of these names. And again, right here's Jair Alexander. The answer is there. If you're willing to overpay for some of these guys, you've already got them on the roster. But again, the big wrench that's thrown into the conversation is Jair Alexander going to be on the field? Because if he's not, this might as well be a 0 grade if he can't.
Yep. It's like Deron Bland down in Dallas. He's going through the same kind of thing. 5 games this year, right? Still grading out high. Still that dude.
Definitely.
It's just the sample size and the availability, right? Can't make the club in the tub. That's the main issue with Jair.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation. I'm glad that Drew brought it up because it is interesting to kind of see, where these guys fall. Let's see here. Milltown Corey said Zane has to stay in. He's showing great talent and skills. Let's do this. Let's switch it up, Tim. Let's go to safety here on PFF. Let's remove the corners. And again, I don't think Zane will meet that 20%. We didn't even know he was a real person until recently, right? So looky here, though. If you remove the noise, right, and Zane, to put it into perspective, he's only played 111 snaps. He's grading out as the 9th best safety in the game right now. Number 4 is Xavier McKinney. You got Zane Anderson at 80.9 at 9th. And again, guys, that could plummet. He could play like trash the rest of the year. We know that, right? But based off what you've seen so far, I understand what Corey's saying here. Like, hey, man, keep him in. As long as if Evan Williams isn't healthy, Corey's not saying start him over Evan, right? It's just if Evan's not in the game, why not go with the hot hand there? And I think somebody said that earlier in the chat too. Stay with the
Coach
hot
Lynn was saying that. Yep. And it's true, especially if you got Bullard in the slot. If Bullard's back on the field, that gives you that ability to go ahead and let Zane stay back there until we get Evan Williams back. And then you've got Keyshawn and CV on the boundary. That's an ideal. It's as ideal as the lineup gets without Jair Alexander at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And again, this is with all the noise in here. It's got Evan Williams as the 30th ranked safety at 72.6, but he's got 473 snaps. So if you were to remove those 20 percenters, right, now you're going to see Xavier McKinney is third in the league at 88.0, only behind Kirby Joseph and Kyle Hamilton. And Kyle Hamilton, again, just a perfect example of he ran that wonky 40-yard dash and fell a little bit in the draft. That dude, it screamed FBI on this guy the entire draft process. I watched him at Notre Dame his entire college career, and it was like this dude was the smartest guy on the field every single play, both offensively and defensively. You could just tell it was going to click at the next level. So when he ran that sideways 40-yard dash and he started to plummet a little bit, I'm going, boy, somebody going to get a hell of a football player. Just so happens one of the best teams in the league in Baltimore were the ones who landed him. So to go down, Evan Williams, when you remove the 20 percenters, is sitting at 21st at 72.6. So a solid top safety. Like you could say he could be the best safety on a team, as you know, not just the best number 2 safety. If we were to remove 50%, has he played 50% of those snaps? He has not yet, right? Because he's sitting at like 411. So he doesn't meet the 50% criteria, but Xavier McKinney obviously does, sitting there at that 88. But interesting, man. We didn't have that in the show notes, but I'm glad we hit on it, Tim. But again, I think we agree here. Stay with Zane if Evan Williams isn't healthy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for it because, you know, we're no stranger to those type of players in Green Bay, right? We get guys that step up out of nowhere and become studs. And, you know, I think Zane Anderson might be that guy for us. I really do.
Yeah, I can see it too, man. All right, let's go back to the Packers news here. And I think it was Wes Hawkowitz had tweeted this out. He said LaFleur on whether Christian Watson's with the knee injury could play after missing practice Thursday. I think he's played enough. If he's feeling up to it Sunday, we'll let him go. If he's not, we won't let him go. Now, listen,
I'm not a doctor.
Is he telling the entire truth there? Probably not. They'll probably be a little more cautious with him than he's kind of leading on. But, you know, you go off of kind of like we always talk about, you go off precedent and you go off of the most recent information. They would not have put him back in the game if they thought, holy cow, something bad's wrong here. The MRI confirms something bad is not wrong, and it's just a bruise. So there's zero risk with Christian Watson of hurting himself more if it's just a bruise, in my opinion. It was just one of those freak plays, the guy falling on his knee a certain way. We really
it's probably a pain tolerance thing at this point, right? Like how much is that really hurting you? And we know Christian's a tough dude. You know, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, I miss me with all the glass comments and all these idiots that we've had to listen to talking about him. Scoot is tough as nails, and he's an absolute dog. So he's willing to go out there and wince through it and play through it. But you're right. It's good to know that the MRI was, you know, negative on some serious issues. But I think it's just a matter of how this is going to affect his play on the field, dealing with the pain from that.
Yeah, completely agree, man. All right, going up. This is cool here. Wes Hawkowitz had tweeted it out. It's Carrington Valentine's world. We're just living in it. You see Carrington bringing that energy at practice. One of those. You got the what do they call it? A gator or a ski mask? I'm not sure what the kids are calling it today. But him out there dancing and seeing the players around him, he's kind of taking on that Jair role. That dude is just going to have a blast while he's out there. I had just tweeted out along with Wes Hawkowitz's tweet. I said Carrington Valentine is quietly becoming a legit starting cornerback, even without injuries. You see how his teammates feed off his energy he brings too. I said when he left Kentucky, and you guys have heard me say this on the show, when he left Kentucky for the draft, Coach Stoops said, quote, "We lost our emotional leader on defense." Excited to grade his playoff play. So again, for me, it's how is this dude going to perform on the largest stage, Tim, in the playoffs? Yeah. This is going to be we always talk about through the season. We get some answers this week. All right, we get another piece of the puzzle this week. How good is this team? Are they a legit Super Bowl contending team? All those things. With Carrington, that's what I'm looking at the playoffs is when he gets his play time, does he continue to show up in the playoffs? We might have our starting cornerback of the future. It's legit. Like PFF has shown it. Passer rating when targeted, it's kind of leaning toward it. We just filtered out the noise, and you can see Carrington, one of those top 64 guys. We may have him, man. We might have him.
I like the comp to Jair, too, and what he brings to the table. I don't care what anyone says. This is what you want in your quarterback room. You need corners that have swag. They have attitude.
Yep.
They have a fearlessness. We talk about the fearlessness that our corners approach the game. A lot of that is, I mean, you're not going to tell me that, CV spending the last, two and a half years around Jair Alexander hasn't rubbed off on his game at this level. And that's why you see with Ja out, no kidding, it's Carrington Valentine that steps up. And I got no problem with the dancing and the celebrating and the trash talk and the swagger when you're getting it done on the field. And Carrington's been getting it done on the field. And I agree, Clayton. I think he might be our guy. This will be a great test, coming up on Sunday, against Minnesota. And, like Drew D's saying here, Nixon has swag too. You see it in this. You see it in this entire secondary room, and so does Xavier McKinney. He's got a kind of more reserved swag and a quieter style of leadership, if you will, out there on the field. But that's good. Let the kids play. And, let them work here at practice, coordinate your pick six celebration or whatever you're doing, and have that attitude that you're going to go out there and you're going to ball out every single snap. And I personally like it. I think there's nothing wrong with it. There's only a problem when you're not getting it done and you're dancing and you're talking. Then we've got issues. So as long as you're going to play at a high level and be that firebrand and that leader out there, I love it. That's why when Jair's out there, it's even stronger. You got Keyshawn, you got CV, you got Jair out there, a lot of swagger out in that secondary. And when guys are breaking up passes and they're blanket in coverage and getting picks, it has an effect on that opposing team's offense. It really does. Plays mind games with them.
Yeah. And what Drew says with Nixon swag, Nixon brings a little bit more of an edge.
Yeah.
And I think back, he won a lot of my respect earlier in the year when he had that hustle play and punched that ball out. That kind of turned the season around for him, it felt like. And I love his response was, yeah, man, it's been forever since I've made a play. Like the other people in that room, the other young cornerbacks hearing this dude is balling his ass off right now, and it's still not good enough. He's acknowledging, hey, I fell short earlier. That's totally the opposite from what you're seeing with Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Caleb Williams is going, hey, they were bad before I got here. And Keyshawn Nixon making a play of the game is going, man, I got to be better, man. It's about time I made a play. Like that's totally different mindset. I love Nixon has grown on me big time. And again, $3 million against the cap this year. It jumps to $6 million next year. Money well spent. Money well spent for Keyshawn.
Absolutely.
So, all right, let's see here. I got real estate agents calling me live on the air. Hey, should I take this call live on the air, Tim? Nah.
You close a deal live on the air?
I was going to say, we got a toilet overflowing. What are we going to do? That's what I said. I want that on the show, right? But completely agree there, Drew, for sure. And again, Carrington is definitely trending up. Let me see if I got anything else on here to hit. We do not. We are live, so we're good there. We'll go ahead and close that window out. And we're coming down to the wire here. We got about 7 minutes left. Let's hit a quick little preview. That sound good, Tim? Let's just kind of look at where the line's at and all that good stuff. Yeah. And I know we kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday, but let's go ahead and hit on it now as we wrap up the show. Give everybody just a little preview on the Minnesota Vikings, and we'll obviously give you guys another injury report tonight, and then we will jump into some of the other deep dives in terms of like NFL Pro and all that good stuff. So when it comes to this matchup against the Vikings, obviously going to be a 3:25 Central kickoff in Minneapolis. Ain't got to worry about the cold. We're in the dome. Going to be loud. We know to expect that. The spread currently, the Packers are still 1-point favorites. Now, we were talking about where some of the money was, right? The money in the spread is on Green Bay to cover that 1-point spread. At 68% of the money is on the Packers. Only 55% of the slips are on the Packers. So I tend to lean toward the money over the slips, over the tickets, because that typically the sharps will boost that money, right? The people who are really putting a lot on the line in individual bets. So the sharps seem to be on the Packers here, okay, at 68% covering the spread. Now, remember, the money line was on the Vikings, but somehow it was on the Packers to cover the spread, which is kind of odd how you get that little mix and match there, which I personally think the sharps bet more on the spread than they do just the straight money line. So I think that's probably some of your common man money there on the money line bets. They still got Minnesota, 55% of the money on them to win and 64% of the tickets, okay, for the Vikings to just win outright. So again, the money is on the Packers to cover the spread of 1 point, and the money is on the Vikings to just win outright. So you kind of call it a split. It's going to be a close game, man. This is going to be a really close game.
Absolutely.
And we talked about the over-under. It is the PFF projections at 49.4. The current over-under is set at 48.5. So if you go off PFF's projection, they're saying take the over. You guys know I was pretty vocal going, I don't know, I'd probably take the under here. But again, you got to take into consideration the teams that both of these teams have played to get those defensive rankings where they're at, where they're both legit a top 5 defense, probably top 3 defense, to be honest with you. So going to be interesting. Drew in the chat, been a member for 7 months. Appreciate you, Drew. He said, this is our chance to silence the doubters. It really is, man. This is all this talk about you haven't beaten a good team. This is a top 3 team in the league.
Get that belt out, Tupac. Get that belt out.
That's right. He's warming that leather up. Belt to ass come Sunday. I think it's going to be a great game, man. I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole as far as put money on it. That's just me. I'm staying out of this one. I look for the easy money. This one could go either way. I really believe that. When you look at the overall rankings, the Vikings are ranked 6th according to their power ranking on PFF. The Packers are 7th. I mean, just neck and neck, right? Power ranking on defense, they've got the Packers with the edge as being the 4th best defense in power ranking. The Minnesota Vikings are sitting at 14th. Power ranking on offense goes to the Vikings at 4th, the Packers at 10th. So, I mean, it's just back and forth, back and forth. Now, strength of schedule played, the Packers, according to PFF, have played the 11th toughest schedule this year. The Vikings have played the 31st toughest schedule. So that would suggest, hey, the Packers have played much more difficult opponents. Now, again, look at the record, right? The Vikings have won 2 more games than the Packers. They've won 13 games. The Packers have only won 11. With that strength of schedule thrown in there, kind of feels like these teams are neck and neck, man. It really does.
I like Omer, Mr. Positivity, as always, the Frenchman in the chat. Packers going to expose that fake Viking team this week. I love it. Omer, welcome back, brother.
All about it. All about it. We got Q Daddy with the super chat. Appreciate you. Said, need that signature win. Gotta have it. Gotta have it, Q Daddy. I feel weird calling you Daddy, but hey, you super chatted. We're gonna call you Daddy in here. Right? No, I'm with you, man. You need that win, and the getting that signature win going into the playoffs is huge. You're talking about creating some serious. This, Tim, it's going to do one of 2 things, in my opinion. It's either going to catapult the Packers of, okay, now we are the top 3 team, and Minnesota kind of drops out of touch, right? Because we beat them on their home turf. But if the Packers, and that, that would create momentum going to the playoffs. If the Packers lose, we can't kid ourselves. There's going to be a little bit of that in the back of our mind going, man, maybe we can't beat the best. Maybe we're not there yet as the youngest team in the league. It's going to be fun, man. It's, again, another piece of the puzzle is the place here. So
I think that's what Q is saying there with that statement, right? It's true. We got to get this dub. And they're hungry for it, man. You see the way that last game ended. Holy cow. I remember walking away. Imagine if the Packers played, 4 quarters in that game. We'd probably win that game. So I think they're going to do that Sunday for sure. We're going to get a full game out of this Packer team.
Yeah. Q Daddy, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate you, bub. Donovan Schilling makes a great point. So listen to this, Tim. Just hear me out here, all right? Hear me out. I kind of want to finish 3rd in the division for the 3rd place schedule next year. So think about this, Tim. If they finish 3rd, and I think people would suggest that's probably where they're going to finish in the division, you're going to need the Vikings to completely collapse for you to finish 2nd in the division. That means you will be playing the 3rd place teams next year, right? The way the schedule shakes out. So you're going to get a much easier schedule next year, although we know how the NFL changes from year to year. An easier schedule with the youngest team in the league ascending, that kind of sounds like a recipe for 13, 14, maybe 15 win team there, man. It really does. So we've already talked, what we're going to do in the draft. We've talked about who do we want to bring back under contract. Now we're talking about, what teams we're going to be playing next year. I just love how we're always a step ahead here, man.
Yeah, for sure. It would be nice, though. I know where Donovan's coming from with this, right? Because last couple seasons, man, schedule's been kind of crazy.
Yeah, for sure, man. It really has. All right, and then the last couple things we'll hit on here in terms of how often these teams run and pass. The Vikings pass the ball 59.4% of the time. That's roughly 8% more than the Packers pass the ball at 51.7% of the time. So we are a much, much, much more balanced football team in terms of run to pass ratio. With the Packers running the ball 48% of the time and the Vikings only run it 40% of the time. Our EPA per run is minus 0.02, and the Vikings are at minus 0.14. And then the EPA per pass is just, literally neck and neck. The Packers are a positive 0.18, slightly edging out the Vikings at a positive 0.17. The last thing we'll hit here and we'll wrap up, the quarterback preview, Tim, is Jordan Love, PFF grade, 77.1. Sam Darnold, 86.0. One of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. Passer rating when clean, it's really, really close. Jordan Love, 107.7. Sam Darnold at 108.4. But the thing that Sam Darnold has done really, really well this year, he's been one of the best quarterbacks against the blitz, against pressure. Pressure or passer rating under pressure, he's a 98.6. Jordan Love is a 76.8. All right. Big time throw percentage. Again, Sam Darnold, 5.37%. That's just a crazy number. Jordan Love at 3.69%. Turnover worthy play percentage. Jordan Love actually has a lower turnover worthy play percentage at 3% flat. Sam Darnold is at 3.64%. And then the power rating, they've got Jordan Love at a 4.0. They got Sam Darnold at a 2.0. The power rating rank, even though Jordan Love Sam Darnold is graded higher, he's performed better under pressure. Maybe it's the turnover-worthy play percentage. I don't know. Maybe it's PFF taking into account that, hey, those big-time throw percentages, sooner or later you're going to kind of hit the wall there, and that's going to drop a little bit. But they have Jordan as a legit, from a power rating standpoint, a top 10 quarterback at 9th. They got Sam Darnold sitting at 23rd. So you got a lot of conflicting information here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think the thing that jumps out to me is the way Darnold handles pressure, though. And I can't wait to see Jeff Hafley scheme up this game. I would assume lots of 4-man rush, right? Lots of stunts and twists. Get creative with your coverages. Little pre-snap sugar, fade off into coverage, right? Mix in those Tampa 2 looks that we love so much, and beat this team that way. Because if you think you're just gonna send the dogs after Sam Darnold, the ball's just gonna come out fast, and it's gonna be a recipe for disaster. Now you do have to mix in the blitz, right? You got to dial up a 5th or a 6th every once in a while, but you can't go super pressure heavy. You want to keep Darnold in the well and have good coverage on the back end, and play fundamentally sound.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And again, when you look at kind of how the line has opened up here, the market opened up at the Packers being 1.5-point favorites, and as the week went along, they became 1-point favorites, and it looks like it's still. I'm sorry, the Vikings were 1.5-point favorites. All right, and then it shifted to the Vikings being 1-point favorites, and then as we cross through Christmas Eve, the Packers are now 1-point favorites. Okay, so that's how the line has shifted. And again, it's how you want to read that. The money coming in is going to shift that line. They're trying to get it as close to 50% as possible. So just something to keep an eye on there. It's going to be interesting, man. I think it's going to be a great matchup. And the big thing about this too, Tim, and we'll go ahead and wrap up with this, is when you get into these games where you've already played a team once and then you're trying to scout for them, you're going to look at their previous 4-game saturation. Their previous 4 games, you're going to comb through their tape and go, what are they doing in these specific situations? What are they doing when they're in trip set, when they're in tray set, when they're in 12 personnel, 21? And you start to create this chart of, okay, here's what they like to do in these specific situations. You also go back and look at your last 2 head-to-head matchups. In this case, they'll probably just go to the most recent one, seeing that the other one was last season. So you go and you look at this last head-to-head matchup what worked, what didn't. From the Minnesota Vikings standpoint, they're going to look at the tape and go, this was really effective, Adam. Should we continue to do that, knowing that the Packers know it too, and they're going to try to change things up? And again, that's why you break the game down into 3 segments every NFL week, and this is Bill Belichick 101. First quarter, you're gathering information. The second into the third quarter is all about controlling the middle late. You make your adjustment early in the second quarter. You control that middle late and the momentum, and then the fourth quarter is a standalone game. Forget all the information you gathered from the weeks prior. How has the first 3 quarters gone? What adjustment do we need to make to win the ball game? Or in this case, or in some cases, when you're winning the ball game, let's make the adjustment to the clock is now our opponent. And that's where Packer fans get upset because we don't put our foot on the throat. I'm telling you, man, when you do that type of stuff, you end up losing games you should have won. And if you the 10% of the games that you lose in those scenarios where you didn't, quote, put your foot on their throat, that's when the casuals are going to be the loudest. So we just can't put a team away, and we just took our foot off the throttle. And it's no, you're playing the numbers game at that point.
Yep. I'm interested in putting a team away early. Get out there and put a 2-score, 3-score lead on the board early. That's how you bury a team rather than trying to come back at the end and then keep your foot on the gas all the way to the finish.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Let's see your last comment. Milltown Corey says Packers are winning by 2 scores and will dominate the Vikings. Hey,
we're sitting here talking about the close game. Milltown Corey comes in here. It's like, nah, we're gonna go straight belt to ass one more time.
Hey, I hope it's true, man. Because again, the momentum that will be created if you're able to pull that off, man. Yeah, it would be awesome. All right, guys.
See some of this in Minnesota. You never know.
I don't know, man. It's a rough look there. That's a real rough look. I tell you what, you will see in Minnesota, though. I think this guy is going to show up again.
Yes.
The boogeyman will be in Minneapolis this weekend, I believe.
Frosty the boogeyman. I love it.
Playing sand. We got one more, and then the following week we're going to see this probably. I'm excited about that too. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Quick shout out to all the super chats today. Thank you all so much. King Tron with the super chat, then with the super chat again. We had Badger Trio with the super chat. Appreciate you, buddy. Drew D, been a member for 7 months. If you want to be a member here on YouTube, just join. Should be on the homepage for us. Just click join, and when you join that'll put you in the drawings to win autographed memorabilia and different just pieces of memorabilia that we give away as a way to reward those who are supporting the channel. We'll be doing an autographed jersey this weekend after the game during the post-game show. So we'll probably announce that later today. We'll decide on which jersey it is. I'm leaning toward a Dorsey Levens autographed jersey. So that'd be kind of cool to give that away. Again, if you're a member on YouTube or you're a member of our Patreon group, just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. If you're one of those 3 tiers, you're good to go. And if you're a member here on YouTube, you're good to go. Also, a shout out to Q Daddy for the super chat as well. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Tim, thank you for your time, man.
Thanks for having me, Clay. Love talking ball with you, man. Can't wait to do it again tonight.
Yeah, we'll probably get into a little film tonight, too. We'll look at what the Minnesota Vikings have done in terms of explosive runs and passes here recently and kind of see how that looks. We'll also have an updated injury report, too. Maybe we'll get a few more puzzle pieces put in place there. But that's it. We'll see y'all tonight, 7 p.m. Central. Everybody have a great day.
And we go. We out.
Bye, guys.